Hello and welcome. Today we've got Jason Q and we're going to be speaking about Mr. T coming back and military stuff, etc., etc. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to my Telegram channel and to nicholasveniamin.com for my free email updates. And if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, I will leave the link below in the description for the full interview if we behave ourselves and we choose our words wisely. Okay, now, Jason, thank you for joining me. I love your t-shirt. I took a picture of us and I put it on Telegram and I thought it was funny. How are you? What's been happening?
Not too bad. Been pretty good. Yeah, we had a show with Alpa and Mel K on Sunday. We did a massive decode with good old 45 because for some reason you have to really watch him.
You have to.
Everything he says, because a lot of things he says, it's definitely enough. So when he's standing at the podium and he was addressing at the Republican National Convention, something very funny about this is that because everything that he does, everything that he says, there's meaning, there's purpose, even his surroundings. He makes sure that if there's numbers being shown, there's something having to do with that. It's that intricate. So when we're sitting there watching and, with he's got North Carolina, like right in front of him. Mm-hmm. And already what you do is you take the N and the C, right? And you're like, okay, this guy's playing numbers now. So if N is a 14, right? It's the 14th letter of the alphabet. Because you go A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. And they had it in one of the posts. And it's almost like once you train yourself and what to look for, and it's almost as if you unindoctrinate yourself and you're reteaching yourself another way. And it's funny because they actually call that Flynn learning. There's actually a terminology called Flynn learning. And when they said, Flynn thinking. And when they said that to think Flynn in both, and one of the drops too, it's like, think Flynn. It's like, so I put, you just start going down and start searching, and they had Flynn thinking. I'm like, wow. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is really something here.
Absolutely. So look, Mr. T says that he is going to be back much sooner than what we think. Okay.
Oh, yes, he is.
Sooner than we know. Now, when do you think that could be?
Well, a lot of people point towards August, right? And myself as well, because there's something big in August. And we did all the numbers and everything. So what they did is they put these numbers, everything happens for a reason, right? Everything has purpose, and it's a map made throughout time. Now, when we started, talking everything, there's always been something that has been in the back of my mind. It's always been a specific letter. And it was a letter written by Albert Pike of the Freemasons, and he wrote it to Giuseppe Mazzini, which was the founder of the Mafia, right? And what he did was he wrote Giuseppe Mazzini a letter outlining all three world wars. Now, this was written on August 15th, 1871.
Right.
Now, this should really make people think because, well, 1871, we didn't have any world wars. The world wars didn't start until, 1912, 1917, around there. And, well, how can you sit here and write outlines for the world wars in 1871 and then them start happening then? But it wasn't so much that they were happening. The first two world wars, how he wrote them, they went down exactly like you wrote them. I mean, when they say, it's mathematically impossible to be a coincidence, it's mathematically impossible to be a coincidence. I mean, when you're talking about communism and fascism and bringing this, bringing that, and even pointing at countries, there's no, it doesn't pass. It doesn't pass the sniff test at all. Not at all. So when it came to the third one, it was between political Zionism and Islam. So now we look at everything, how everything was going, ahead, and we have Israel and Iran going at it, right? They're button heads. But then whenever they say like Russia is going to go into U.S. and everything, it's like, guys, that's all theater right there. It's like keep your eye on the prize. But it's about that date as well, because on the 100-year anniversary of that, President Nixon, he took us off the gold standard again. So you'd think it's like, well, why would he do it again? I mean, it's already done before in 1933. Well, as we've learned, everything's got to be done twice. So now that was the 100th anniversary. And now with this anniversary coming up, it's the 150th anniversary. Right? So now with this 150th anniversary coming up, on August 15th, well, we have with 45, and he knows all this. I mean, they know every bit of this, because what actually ignited the powder keg was this letter was always displayed in a London. It was a London library at a university, right? In 1978, it come up missing, and they said, "We don't have it. We don't know what you're talking about." Well, in 1979, that's when you had the overthrow of the Shah of Iran after 2,500 years of peace. And who was the last one that brought peace to Persia? It was because it was called Persia and Iran. Because Iran, beautiful country. I mean, just what's sad is that, like, and I can say this about like Americans, like we as Americans, we think of Iran and you think it's just all just like desert and just like huts. It's like, no. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, everybody, the women wore this. It was almost like America mirrored without the liberals. It's like the women wear dresses and everybody's wearing vibrant colors. Everybody's having, everybody's free. And now, they pretty much put a stop to all that, which is sad. So now the last person that brought freedom there was, well, it's King Cyrus. Pretty much know who King Cyrus is, don't we? Yeah, it's President Trump.
So you said August the 15th. I
Yes.
think 18th century. You said something like that. Are you suggesting that August the 15th may be a significant time?
August 15th, 2021 will be a huge day. That is going to be a massive day.
And also we have there was a gentleman from, from Congress. He has a verified blue badge on Twitter, and he said that they will finish counting the ballots up until the 14th of June, which is Mr. T's birthday. What could be happening after that? Do you think the reveal is going to come out? Are we going to see vast majority of public, possibly arrests?
Because I was watching your show with Melissa Redpill, and by the way, great show, phenomenal show. It's just one thing. How you guys were saying that something was going to happen that day. Wouldn't you know it? They put 4 of those brand new Black Hawk helicopters, fully armed. They landed right on the Capitol grass and pointed right at the building. If that doesn't tell you something, because they were not there just to help. Because remember, they were running exercise, right? The Capitol exercise. Now, you know how they like a play on words, right? What about exorcise? Like exorcising a demon? I think that's what they were doing.
Whatever I mean, you're absolutely right. But we know for sure, well, we are certain, we're not 100%, but from the playbook and the way they play and everything that's been happening and the way we've been studying everything, it's very, very likely that the exercise is an excuse to keep the public, to keep them not wondering what's happening, to make sure they're not worried because the white hats are in control and they care about to prevent psychological damage. And this is, again, maybe this is constitutional. Is that constitutional to maybe twist, to not twisting, I don't want to say lie either, but to be diplomatic and put things in a way that protects the people?
I mean, when it comes to Constitution, it is to protect the people. It's for the people, for the people, by the people. The thing about it is that all this other propaganda garbage, that's all been unconstitutional. That's one of the playbooks of Goebbels, and and then that group back in the 40s,
right?
Yeah, you catch that group, but it's just the propaganda machine. What they did was, with the whole Operation Paperclip, when they brought them here, because there are people that still want to argue about this, that we've won all the world wars. I'm like, no, we haven't.
Right.
The winners do not get the bad guys. That's not what's considered winning. That's never winning.
Yeah. So say, we've got the audits happening. I like to say the other words to sound like, but I'm going to choose my words wisely. I hope I have up until this point.
Oh yeah. I think so.
Yeah. So the audit's happening, it's being exposed. We know from Mike Lindell that the evidence cannot be altered. And we also know that the evidence is also enough to overturn the situation of November the 3rd. Okay.
Yes.
Now, when Mr. T comes back, say August, we're going to say August because Mike Lindell says, I think he's going to come back in August. And then we've got Mr. T saying sooner than you think. Okay. So what do you think would be the first thing he will do when he comes back?
Well, it depends on, because I mean, honestly, he hasn't left. He's still been our president. He's been our president the whole time. Because if people think that, that this character has been in and been dragging the country down, and I mean, this is where you have to do like just some critical thinking. It's like, okay, so the I don't know what I could call her. Willie Brown's mistress went to Guatemala, and when they were down there, they weren't too kind to her being there. They had a bunch of Trump signs up, go home. It's like, it's great. It's like, I thought you guys got 80 million votes, man. You guys most popular of all time. But see, there's just a problem with this. It's called fraud vitiates everything. And I mean, it stems from earlier in the UK, way earlier in the UK, but it's been shown throughout time that fraud vitiates everything. It cancels out every contract, because as soon as something is found fraudulent, that means from then on, everything else, it's like once there's a lie, you can't, that's it. From there on, it's all done, because you don't know. It's all fraudulent. Even contracts, the most solemn of contracts. And there was an 1878 Supreme Court decision by the U.S. versus Throckmorton, and that's where the whole fraud vitiates everything in a Supreme Court decision. So now, when we speak of fraud, and that means any kind of fraud, we have the fraud in Arizona. We have the big one was, you have to just look at Detroit. Mm-hmm. When you have 800% voting, right there, it should throw up every single red flag from here to your house. Guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Every red flag. Just due to the fact that even if you have 100% voting, that should tell you something. Because usually people think we outvote. They say they do, they don't. I mean, if you hear, and it's sad because when we look, across the world, and there are countries where their citizens will actually stand in line for days just to make one vote. Mm-hmm. Like in India, and they do the thumb stamp, and they're all happy. It's like, here, we have the right to vote, and yet people are too lazy to just, drive up the block. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had 50% turnout, I would be surprised. That's how pretty
Right.
pretty pathetic it is. But this one, no. I mean, this one, I noticed that when I went to vote, I mean, it was packed. It was never like this. And I mean, when you look outside, all you see are Trump stickers, Trump flags, everything like that. It's like, I have yet to see one Biden, anything.
Flags, so tell me this. Nothing. Where are you right now? Where are you based? In Chicago, was it?
Yeah, Northwest Indiana.
Yeah. So what's it like there when you go to, to Walmart, for an example? I mean, what's the situation in Walmart? Do you think most people are for Mr. T or for Biden?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, go to Walmart much time. They I mean, Indiana's pretty basically been Republican, so it is still Republican. There's a lot of people for Trump. I've never met a Biden supporter in my life.
do you think that that the amount of supporters of Mr. T has increased during the time of Biden's presidency?
Oh yeah, I think it has. And
you felt it. You feel the energy. You feel it when you speak to people, their behavior when you go out.
And how we could see and how we could do a gauge on this, it's the masks. And it's sad because there's so many people still asleep, and you see these people still wearing the masks out there. It's like, and I just never have. I refuse to. It's like, it's not going to happen. I mean, you'll see your couple people that don't wear it. And the thing is, like, you don't even know them. You give them a nod. It's almost like a new, it's one of those new bonding things. It's like, that he knows that they know that she knows.
Just from
not having one on. Yeah. Just not having one on. And, you look at it, it's like, well, when are people going to stop wearing these? Number one, it was, April 6th here. It's funny that they dropped it on the 6th, and they dropped the mask mandate here, and people are still afraid. They're like, oh, well, it's by company. It's by corporation. It's like, whoa, wait a second. No. You want to come in here and you want to strut and say that it's, first of all, they say, well, it's a law. I'm like, show me the law. Well, it's a man. No. You said it's a law. They call the police. Call the police and have me arrested because I'm breaking the law, right? They can't do it. It's like, well, why not? Well, it's a mandate. I'm like, what's a mandate? Describe a mandate. It's like, what? So these people could sit there and then they could take, take away your rights. I mean, these are your constitutional rights. Because just a couple years ago, you guys were all running around with "I can't breathe" shirts on and "I can't breathe" signs on, and now you're running around with looking like Darth Vader.
That's the irony. Absolutely. Which is it? That's a very good one. We were wearing t-shirts, "I can't breathe" because of George Floyd. And now they're actually putting masks all on their face and they actually can't breathe and they're producing, lung problems. This is terrible.
It is. And especially after that whole George Floyd thing was fraudulent. It's a complete fraud. It's a hack. I mean, we have it down to like 7 Sigma 3. Who brought the dummy out? I mean, when they pull up with an ambulance, who gets out the back? Paramedics, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Not county sheriffs.
We'll try not to use the word fraud, okay?
Okay, the F word. It's only F word.
We'll just say it was we'll use a descriptive word or we'll just say it's a sham. We'll say it's a sham.
It was a bamboozle.
It was a bamboozle.
It's a bamboozle.
It was, yeah.
It was a boomboozle.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, and that's the sad part is like, because people just don't think. They don't think for themselves. They let that box in their living room do the thinking for them. And it's sad. It's like, guys, come on, everybody. And the sad part is that all the other countries besides us, they're getting real news. They're taking to the streets. You guys have taken to the streets. I know that. I've talked to you guys. Funny thing is that you see nothing around here. It shows that, we're the, leading forward for all. Everybody's being good about this. Like,
when you said about governments are not mandating the masks, but they're allowing the corporations to mandate the masks. That's another tactic or technique, if you like, or another thing to divide us from our employers and our friends and our work colleagues. And then the ones that are asleep who don't really know what's happening, they won't blame the governments. So the governments are the good guys again, and the corporations are bad because they're not the ones that are mandating the masks. They're using the corporations to do the dirty work for them. And then it causes more division. But me and you and the viewers, we see straight through it because we know their playbook.
Well, when it comes to that, when it comes to corporations and by the government leaving up to them to do that, number one, that's just wrong. Number one, to even put this mandate up for something that for having an incident that is so beyond even human comprehension, to say that it happened because somebody ate some soup. It's beyond me, because these corporations are all publicly traded, in the United States. These corporations are bound also by the U.S. Constitution. Under the U.S. Constitution, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, when it comes to life, what is necessary for life? You need oxygen. You have to breathe. You need that 19.8 to 20.2% oxygen mix with nitrogen and other inorganic gases. So are you getting it? No. They want you to wear these things. And now, thank God. I just got to say thank God for the internet, and thank God for other people that are using their brains, that are like showing everyone, like with those one coverings. You can't use hot water, or you can't use cold. It has to be like a perfect temperature, like if you're exhaling, and just constantly exhaling and getting the front of it damp. Well, get some things coming out the front, crawling out the front. It's like, what is that? And they said they were nanotech, and I'm like, so yeah, nobody finds a problem with this. But then what do? They scrub it off the internet. Oh, it's all false. It's all false. And we look at the internet. It's like, well, hold on a second. It's like, like the whole T thing. Not Mr. T, but the Bluebird. Called Bluebird. The whole Bluebird thing, or Nigeria. Nigeria's like, you know what? No, we're getting rid of it. Because if you're going to censor them, then we're just going to say, you know what? No, there's no more Bluebird here. Bluebird dead. Well, then here comes people from Bluebird saying, oh no, the Bluebird is a human right. It's like, okay, if the Bluebird is a human right, and yet just go right back across the pond, and you stripped the most powerful man in America from his little Bluebird rights, from his Bluebird human rights, right? So how does that work? Because honestly, I mean, was he saying anything wrong? He wasn't saying anything wrong. Nobody's saying anything wrong. You have your First Amendment rights, free speech and all this. So under free speech, well, if you're sending propaganda you know, how is any of this even, how's it even brought up? Because if people don't like me and they write stuff about me, say stuff about me, that's fine. That's their opinion. I mean, everybody's entitled to it. Because, man, no, it's an opinion. What can you say? I mean, people are going to think, this or that. I mean, I kind of think it's funny because, you're just taking up free rent in somebody else's head that's irrelevant. That's all. You just have to think about, getting the message out, getting the proper message out to those that, that resonate with you, because that it's informational warfare. So there will be those that hate, but you know what? I embrace the haters. Because I mean, for just sticking through all this and still not learning a damn thing, because just by them just sitting there waiting to their chance to even say anything, it's like with 45, it's like they would sit here and just just keep on knocking him down, even though he has a right to talk to us. He is the only one that has that right. It's just like if you say that because there's a specific law for him saying that if he walks up to a podium, to address the nation, he is to be uninterrupted, no breaks, no cameras could be turned off, no stalling, no delay, no nothing, until he steps away from that podium. If he wants to stay there for 3 days talking, he can, and it has to stay running. Now, we already know that CNN's put a 3-second delay on him. Already know that they should be gone. But the thing is, they're wanting us to learn this, because if they were just to go, say, oh, well, they did this, they did that. Well, how does that make them any better than us? They're trying to teach us how to run a government. Us. It's almost like we're taking a massive civics class. It's like a worldwide civics class on how to be better for humanity as a whole, as a oneness, and say, you know what? We all have these rights, everyone. We all have the right to free speech. But with free speech comes, you do have consequences. You just can't go out and start yelling you can't, they say, you can't yell fire in a packed theater and all this. But that's a different kind of speech. That's a speech where people can get injured, trampled or death. I mean, if it's basic speech, I mean, yeah, everybody has that freedom of speech. But you also have to be able to regulate your speech and have responsibility over your speech. So, and that's all we're saying. It's not like you could just go out there and say whatever you want. Well, say whatever you want. I mean, just say, well, if somebody said something about your I mean, I guess you could say if somebody said something about your mom or something like that, it's like when we were kids, it's like your mom would be like, well, is she? No. Okay, then just don't worry about people like that. It's just.
Sure. So how is the American people going to know? I mean, there's 350 million people in the States, and we believe 80 million voted. Okay. So how do we know that the remaining 270 million people, how are they going to know that, Mr. T has made a return?
Well, because you have Operation Warp Speed that he has to come out with. That's his that's the whole blockchain voting, plus it could be the whole antithesis to this the antibody to these bio, it's warfare.
Okay.
Exactly what it is.
Just for the viewers, could you please explain what is operational warp speed?
Well, you have warp speed, and it's they have the blockchain voting, right? Which is, because they said that it's supposed to be, everything's supposed to be dispersed by the military, right? Well, from a 2005 judgment by Judge Emmett G. Sullivan, name should ring a bell, and a 34-page decision, he wrote that mandatory that it's unconstitutional for the military to have mandatory V's.
Right, I've got it.
Because
It's an experiment.
Yes, they were experimental. Yes, for the Gulf War. Because I mean, there were so many people that got sick and died from it. It's heartbreaking when you think about it. It's like, and they're trying it again. And when your own government hates you that much that they want to just, they want to kill you in droves, that's what it's like. That's what it is here. And the only person to stand up for us is President good old 45.
Yeah.
And it took this long for people to not even wake up, because they haven't woken up yet. But when the truth does come out, because our the biggest nemesis for public is the media. But I think it was influenced a lot earlier than this. And it was from when they had an article out, and they were talking about how Russia and the US engaged, their fighter jets engaged, and then they broke off. But deeper in the article, they were talking about this B-52 bomber, and it was flying with 3 jets from each of 2 countries, right? You had Spain and Portugal. Now, there's not a lot of people at all that know about this, but that right there in itself, that was maybe one of the biggest things that could have happened for us as humanity. It's just seeing those 2 countries, it's like they were, together. Because back on November 22nd, November 11th, 1822, or it was November 22nd, 1822. There was a secret treaty signed, the Treaty of Verona. Now, it was signed between the Vatican and France. But there were a bunch of other countries that also signed through, but it was mainly the Vatican, France that this had to do with, because a lot of it had to do with free speech, and the liberties of speech, and that they wanted it all struck down. The Vatican wanted all free speech struck down. And this was back then, 1822. So you can imagine all this that's happening to us, it comes directly from them. Everything does. So
it makes sense.
Yeah.
When we look at the architecture of the Vatican, I mean, it really does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And how when all these quote unquote leaders go to see this guy, and they're bowing to him. I mean, they're ready to kiss his feet and everything. I'm like, who's this guy? It's like, when you really think about it, it's like, this guy isn't God. This guy isn't God.
No. Yeah.
This guy, this is just some guy that you guys put in there.
Exactly. And you know what? You can tell from his eyes, he's quite an evil man. If you remove, you look at the Pope and you remove his clothing, the white clothing that he wears, and you just imagine him in a Rockefeller suit, and with a cigar. Just imagine the Pope with a cigar in his mouth, and a Jack Daniels in his other hand. You can tell he's got that look. He's got that in his eyes, and the window in his, the eyes are the windows to the soul. Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's hard to have a soul when you're Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the Jays, the Ignatius Loyola's assassins, the Catholic assassins. Yeah, those guys. So
do you think, back to how people are going to know when Mr. T makes a return, because people have to know that's so important. So do you think some of the mainstream media might report it in their own twist?
What the thing is that they're going to grab all this. It's going to come down like a whole house of cards.
Do you think that would be? Sorry, please.
Oh, they're going to make them explain their crimes. They're going to have to. They're complacent to all these crimes.
So do you think the mainstream media will be left at their own accord to justify themselves or reason with the people what they have been saying? And you know.
Well, first of all, we'd like to understand why the mainstream media and why the media across the world did not failed to report that there were 454 members of our Senate and Congress arrested at the end of January of this year. Why wasn't that reported? The military put it out. The military put it out for them to report it because the military was in control. So, and they knew they weren't going to do it, but they want to make sure that, it got out there. And when people are like, oh, that didn't happen, it's like, so after every election in United States history, afterwards, we just go ahead and put a big fence and big barbed wire around it. And then at the lights at the White House, go out at night, every night at 11 o'clock exactly. You want to know when the lights go out at 11 o'clock at night? Prison. That's when. At prison lights out, it's at 11 o'clock. So, which is it, right? I mean, look what they did to the National Guard that was guarding there. They said, they sent them all to like a parking garage to stay when it was cold out and everything. It's like they intentionally do this. It's all, it is a lot of it's Republicans too, but it is majority, like 95% of it is all Democrat. But you know what the thing is? You've got two wings on the same bird. You have to get rid of the whole thing, all of them. Just do it with all of them.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely. We just have to see how this unfolds. But it's very interesting how the mainstream media is going to handle this, because this is not just congressmen in the background being arrested. This is we're talking about replacing a president that had the November the 3rd event taken away from that person. So, and this is the front person that the American people have to know who their president is. So I want to see how the mainstream media is going to handle this.
Well, you start by having them rainstorm all every media outlet. I mean, it's kind of funny what people say when guns are to their head. Just ask Clinton.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Jason, listen, it's been absolutely amazing having you on again. I really had a nice time. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the listeners before we finish?
Just everything's happening. You just gotta
show us.
Did you notice something this morning when you woke up? By the way, the sun. Did you notice how bright it was?
I didn't, because I was naughty and had a lie-in. So
it was so bright, Nicholas. I mean, because usually, you can look up and see, at least, somewhat. It was just like, oh my God, just roast my eyes. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, what is that now? So it's like, we'll see.
So if you stand up, just show us your T-shirt so that the viewers can see what it says at the bottom. 1 for Biden, 1 for Harris. I love it. Do you know, it's very ironic today. Coincidence. I'm wearing this today as well. Pandemic.
Oh man! And when people see, that's gonna be. People are gonna freak. But
what you mean on the return? The return, but I think it's going to be a very
when they find out about that. Well, the thing is, I think it'll be great because he can actually bring that into play too.
When they find out about what
the whole
about this, you mean this?
Well, yeah, about the CARES Act and how they signed the CARES Act and on July. They passed the CARES Act on July 17th, 2019. And they introduced it on January 24th, 2019 by Joe Connolly, a Democrat from Connecticut. Well, how can you pass a whole act and everything like this with something that never even hit yet?
But this is a thing as well. I mean, Mr. T signed into law, and I know I keep saying this, but the mainstream media like to keep repeating themselves because that's how they do programming. But we're deprogramming. So I like to repeat myself now and then. But on the 5th of January 2021, Mr. T signed into law to investigate pandemic. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. To investigate to investigate this thing.
The buffoonery, or false claims.
Yeah,
false claims of a
to investigate something that was fabricated, and
yes.
It's very clear what he wrote in that law, and I think that that's going to be his return. Then it's going to be that law. Before we see Federal Reserve and the collapse of this and the collapse of that, and arrest.
Oh no,
I think we're going to see that first. The investigating force. This basically,
I'll tell you what, we've seen all that happen already, and once you catch it, because we discussed it on Alpha and with Alpha and MLK, and that one is it's very colorful to say the least.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you might want to check that out. And
absolutely,
it's fun.
Yeah,
because when you see how they did this, Nicholas, I mean, I was giggling like a schoolgirl half the time. you're just like, man, these guys are so much fun. It's like, and they're like, they got to be running a some kind of betting thing. It's like, you think you can get this? Think they could slide this in there? It's like, nah, there's no way they're gonna be able to say this right in front of the American people.
No.
Oh, it's like, these ones are under control. The whole hive-minded. It's like, because some of the stuff some of the things that these guys say, it's like 46 light, down in Guatemala, it's like, well, why haven't you been to the border? I mean, people are asking, she's like, why haven't been to Europe either, Mike? That's what you're bringing. That's your excuse. It's like, well, the border, Europe isn't in the United States either. The border is. It's like, that's what they're having the problem. You're the border czar. They made you the border czar. It's like, that's your job.
Yeah, absolutely. But, Jay, it's been wonderful. We're running out of time. But
yes, it has.
Yeah, but thank you. And we'll speak again very soon. God bless you.
You got it. Have a good one, Bob.
Bye.
You bet.